Shalom. We're going to start off by giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and salutations to the brothers that's teaching this truth and sincerity. Shalom to the hopeful elect, 1/3 of sincere listeners. Or Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world ignorantly calls God, and Yahweh Shai being the name of his Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. This gospel is true, the kingdom of heaven, salvation. It's for the Israelites and the Israelites only, who are you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and the ones scattered abroad that may look like the other nations, but your spirit resonates with this truth. The kingdom of heaven, salvation is for you. This is just going to be an update on to this war that's going on in the Middle East with Iran, Israel, and the United States. Okay, yesterday there was going to be Iran was facing being destroyed by the United States, and then they came to a ceasefire yesterday. Trump chickened out, he bitched up on his stance, and they quote unquote had a ceasefire. However, today Israel broke that ceasefire. Okay, as it says, ceasefire is threatened as Israel expands Lebanon. Right? Expands Lebanon strikes, and Iran closes Strait again. All right, so Israel sent strikes on Lebanon, which is allied with Iran. All right, Hezbollah, whatever, proxy, whatever, allied with Iran, and so that's not that wasn't part of the deal. Obviously, at the negotiating table. All right, and so we're back at it again, back to square one. The Strait of Hormuz is now closed. Okay, and because yesterday when the ceasefire, right, I was like, fuck the ceasefire. I was mad. I'm like, damn, they came to a ceasefire. At this point, there ain't gonna be no more. In the spirit, I could be wrong, but there isn't gonna be no more ceasefires because Iran cannot trust the United States and Israel. They can no longer trust them because they're not men of integrity. They don't hold to their word. Okay, they're liars, and they're cheats. But it's Esau, right? That's who you're dealing with. Esau as a nation is a liar. He's not a man of integrity. He's not devout. You know what I'm saying? He's the wicked. So what do you expect, right? A ceasefire deal to pause the war in Iran appeared to hang by a thread Wednesday after the Islamic Republic closed the Strait of Hormuz again in response to Israeli attacks in Lebanon. The White House demanded that the channel be reopened and sought to keep peace talks on track. The U.S. and Iran both claimed victory after reaching the agreement. So what? There's no losers, eh? Yeah, anyways. And world leaders express relief. Whoo! What does the scripture say? They shall say peace and safety and sudden destruction. Grab that real quick. First Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them. That's prophecy right there. And this prophecy is happening all the time. As travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. That's right. NLT. When people are saying everything is peaceful and secure, then disaster will fall on them as suddenly as a pregnant woman's labor pains begin. It's unexpected, and there will be no escape. That's right. Even as more drones and missiles hit Iran and Gulf Arab countries at the same time, Israel intensified its attacks on the Hezbollah militant group in Lebanon, hitting commercial and residential areas. That means civilians. At least 182 people were killed Wednesday. They said it was about, I've seen other articles that said like 250 plus, right? So the war not going to stop. The fresh violence threatened to scuttle what was President J.D. Vance called a fragile deal. Parliament Speaker accuses U.S. of breaking Iran's conditions. The Iranian Parliament Speaker said planned talks were unreasonable because Washington broke 3 of Tehran's 10 conditions for an end to fighting. In social media posts, Mohammed Bagar Galabaf objected to Israeli attacks on Hezbollah, an alleged drone incursion into Iranian airspace after the ceasefire took effect, and U.S. refusal to accept any Iranian enrichment capabilities in a final agreement. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi insisted that an end to the war in Lebanon was part of the ceasefire deal. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. President Donald Trump said the truce did not cover Lebanon. When the deal was announced, Pakistan's Prime Minister, whose country served as a mediator, said in a social media post that it applied to everywhere, including Lebanon and elsewhere. So these guys are hypocrites. Okay? That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with you're dealing with hypocrites. Let's see. Isaiah 10:6, I will send him against an hypocritical nation, against the people of my wrath will I give him charge to take the spoil and to take the prey and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. And that hypocritical nation is the Edomites, so-called white race. All right, they don't stand on none of their words, man. All right. This is Jeremiah 49, and it says in 20, therefore hear the counsel of the Lord Yahweh that he hath taken against Edom and his purposes, Esau, Edom, you Edomites, so-called white people, and his purposes that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. And the least of the flock is the Amalekites. All right. The least of Esau is the Amalekites. Okay. And that's exactly what they're doing, because here it is now. They're playing that semantical game where U.S. is like, okay, I didn't do it. It was Israel that did it. So the deal's got to still be on. And they're playing that devilish semantical game. You know what I'm saying? And you cannot be trusted, right? So devilish semantics. Probably going to add that into the devilish semantics and deception. All right, I'll just call it devilish semantics. I'm going to add that into the title of this video. Esau's devilish semantics. That's exactly what it is. Sirach 12:10, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. And Iran is not trusted in their enemy, which is Esau, Edom, as it stands. Right? Simple and plain. They're not with the bullshit. And based off of this, I don't see they're coming to a halt now. And I'm glad. Because we want prophecy to ensue, right? We want this to keep escalate further and further. All right. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusted, so is his wickedness. Though he humbleth himself and go crouching, let's make a peace deal, let's come to an agreement, right? Yet take good heed and beware of him, right? And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hadst wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. Set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. Right? But we try and tell our people too, you Israelites, you stubborn ass Israelites. All right, that the white man is the devil, but you don't want to believe us. And you're not going to believe us until you get pricked by him. All right? Until you really go through the fire with that nigga. Esau, Edom. And that's exactly what you got to do. You got to go through the fire. You got to die with him, man. You know, your hand joining hand. All right, this really we're learning. This should be more confidence in who the devil is. You can't hold up your bargain of the deal, bro. Which is prophecy, anyways. But you know that just boosts our faith in knowing who the wicked is, identifying the wicked, and understanding who this devil is. And he's just playing his role that the Lord has set up. All right, he's a tool. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Psalms. I'm gonna end it off here. Psalms 55 and 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. All right, yeah, that's how the devil talks. That's how the devil approaches you. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. So they're already ready. They're already ready to, you know, get down and dirty. That's their blessing. They can't help it. We got the biggest guns. That's their mindset. We got the biggest guns, biggest bombs, biggest air fleet, drones, whatever. That's how they move. Bossy. Right? But this is exciting, bro. So, you know, I can just keep the faith always. And Lord will, this video is edifying. I say shalom to the next.